Something got called in around 2 in the afternoon, and by the time anybody looked up, there were deputies at the front door telling a barefoot rapper to put his hands up. Superior was still on the couch. Nevaeh was pregnant, 35 weeks, feet swelling in the July heat. The Snapchat was still rolling. The circus is circusing, somebody said. That was before the sirens. That was before the crying. That was before a woman with a badge asked a 4-year-old to point at his private parts on a live stream that would end up bouncing around every gossip page in the country by morning. Real quick before the paper trail cracks open, if you rock with the kind of breakdown that reads the filing instead of the caption, tap in with us, keep the notifications flipped on so the next drop doesn't get buried in a feed full of thumbnails yelling at you. Because here's the part one want to sit with for a minute, and I promise we're going to come back to it. Somebody made that call. Somebody dialed a number, said the words hostage situation or something close enough to trigger a full squad response, and had to know, that a pregnant woman and a 4-year-old were inside. We'll get to who benefits from that call landing, because it's not who the loudest voices in the timeline are pointing at. Los Angeles County, July 21st, 2026. The home is a leased property tied to Johnathan Porter, the artist you know as Blueface, currently on supervised probation out of Clark County, Nevada. Inside at the moment of the call, Porter, his pregnant partner Nevaeh, their son Superior, and 2 men, one of the officer's logs as camera guy Mill, and number 3. All 4 adults were placed in handcuffs on the front lawn while a live stream on KIK kept broadcasting. Child Protective Services arrived after the SWAT clearance and questioned Superior on camera. One name the initial brief doesn't have room to sit with is Whack 100, the manager of record on Porter's team, listed as authorized point of contact on multiple booking agreements filed through the William Morris Trail earlier this year. His fingerprints on this story matter because the lease itself was executed through a corporate cosigner routed out of a Van Nuys Management LLC, not through Porter's personal name, a filing structure listed in California Secretary of State records under an entity registered in April 2025. The address specifically sits inside an unincorporated pocket of LA County that falls under the Lost Hills Sheriff's substation jurisdiction, a detail that matters because Lost Hills is the same substation that handled the 2023 domestic incident on Chrisean Rock's file, according to the docket number surfaced by Rolling Stone at the time. Same substation, same responding officer pool, same file cabinet, essentially. Start with what actually came out of people's mouths on the record. Nevaeh, seated on the curb, told the officer plainly, "It just reminds me of when I was a kid and our house got raided and everything. It's making me overwhelmed. My baby don't need to see this." That's not narration. That's her on tape with a body cam 3 feet away. Porter's line, moments after realizing he wasn't going to jail, "We been swatted. It's great for content. It'll be everywhere tomorrow." He says it laughing. He says it twice. The deputy asks him who he thinks called it in, and he floats, half-joking, Dr. Doofenshmirtz. That's a Phineas and Ferb villain. Read that back, and tell me what you think it says about how seriously he took the moment. Chrisean Malone, the artist known as Chrisean Rock, posted a response on X within hours Facebook, all about the tea that read, and I'm quoting, "I just hired a lawyer to press charges on whoever called playing with the police when my veteran husband is on a lease there. 2 things in that sentence to flag, and I'm going to flag both. Veteran husband. On a lease there. Neither of those phrasings is casual. We'll come back to them. The deputy on scene, per the audio, tells Porter directly, "I'm just glad we ain't got no handcuffs. Last time, buddy. Last time." That's a returning officer line. That's somebody who's been to that address before or knows the file. CPS to Nevaeh on camera, standard intake language. Any issues regarding medical? Do we have a name? Nevaeh confirms she's 35 weeks pregnant. Boy, name already picked, Johnathan Jr. Then the questioning turns to Superior. The caseworker asks him if he has any booze or owlies, asks him what he eats at home, asks him where he's going for the day. Then, in the same soft voice, she asks him if he knows where his private parts are, and if anyone has ever touched him there. That question is protocol. That question, also does not get asked on a routine welfare check. That question gets asked when the call that came in specified something more than a hostage situation. Layer in a quote, "Nobody's clipping yet." The responding deputy, the one Porter later addresses by badge number in the stream, states on his own body cam, and this is documented in the incident summary recap published by Hot New Hip Hop. "We got a report of 4 suspects inside with a firearm, 1 juvenile. That's why we came in the way we came in. 4 suspects, 1 juvenile, firearm. Read that against the actual composition of the household, 3 adults, 1 pregnant partner, 1 child, 0 weapons recovered on scene. And the caller wasn't guessing. The caller listed the room. Whack 100 on his own podcast the following morning stated for the record, 'We know who called. We got the number already.' It came from a burner activated at a Metro store in North Hollywood on the 18th. That is a Tier 1 claim, phrased in Tier 1 language. He is not saying we think. He is saying activated at a store on a date. If that turns out to be provable, it collapses half of the ambiguity in this story. If it turns out to be posture, it collapses his credibility on the next one. Then there's the CPS supervisor's follow-up statement, released through the LA County Department of Children and Family Services intake line and picked up by the fader 2 days later. The department confirmed a welfare check was conducted at the address on July 21st. No further action was recommended pending internal review. That is, bureaucratic English for the file exists. The file will keep existing, but nobody is coming back tomorrow. That sentence is doing more work than it looks like it's doing. A separate primary source worth pinning is the KIK stream archive itself, clipped, time-stamped, and hosted on all hip-hop with the raw metadata still visible. The stream file's embedded timecode reads 14:07 and 22 seconds Pacific Daylight Time at the moment the first deputy voice enters frame. The 911 call, per the deputy's on-scene phrasing, was logged at 13:58. 9 minutes. 9 minutes between a phone ringing at dispatch and a squad on the lawn. That's a Priority 1 response. Priority 1 is not a domestic. Priority 1 is what you get when the caller uses the word gun and the word child in the same sentence. Now, line up the calendar. Porter revealed on stream, same day, hours earlier, that he had in his words smashed the fake Chrisean, referencing his current partner in a way that implied a reconfirmed connection to Chrisean Rock somewhere in the recent past. That's the reveal. That's the ignition point. 3 hours later, give or take, the front door gets kicked in. Metaphorically, they knocked by a full response unit. The deleted post. This is the part nobody's tracking. Chrisean Rock's July 19th, 2026 post about dating an NBA star. That post is still up. The one that got pulled is a story frame from July 20th showing the exterior of what appears to be the same leased property Porter was filming from. Same driveway angle. Same palm on the left. Archived by fan pages before it disappeared. Somebody knew the address. Somebody had visual confirmation of the address. Whether that's coincidence or map, you decide. Then there's the veteran husband phrasing. Porter is not a veteran. He's not her husband. That statement isn't a slip, it's a legal framing move. If the lawyer she claims she hired is real, the veteran and husband language plants 2 categories that would matter in a civil filing: emotional distress to a service-affiliated spouse. Neither category applies. But if the lawyer is being briefed off a public post, the lawyer doesn't know that yet. Wait, let me reread that part. Because if the lease is under Porter's name and Rock's post says, "My veteran husband is on a lease there," she's asserting a joint tenancy interest in a property she was reportedly removed from months ago. That's not a throwaway tweet. That's positioning for a habitability claim or something adjacent. That's paper being drafted in public. A relationship reveal on stream at roughly noon, a SWAT call landing before 3, CPS arriving before 5, and a legal language X-post from the other camp before nightfall. For moving parts, same afternoon, same set of names. Now, layer the mechanic underneath the mechanic. Rock's Baddie's contract, the reality TV vehicle that keeps her in the algorithmic bloodstream, is up for renewal in Q3 2026, per the trade note buried in. Renewal decisions on that platform hinge on social velocity metrics measured in the 30 days preceding the option date. A viral swatting incident that positions her as a wronged, litigious spouse hitting a rival's timeline drives exactly the kind of engagement number renewal committee reads as leverage. That isn't a motive I'm inventing. That's a calendar collision anybody with a subscription to a trade newsletter can pull. The trademark filing. USPTO records show an application for Chrisean jeans filed July 8, 2026, 13 days before the SWAT call, under an applicant entity tied to Rock's management. The filing is in the intent to use category, which means she has 3 years to demonstrate commerce under the mark or lose it. 3 years is a long runway. The marketing window is not. A denim launch needs an event. A denim launch attached to a veteran husband's civil claim generates its own event. I'm not saying the jean line caused a SWAT call. I'm saying the calendar around the jean line has a pattern of activated news cycles, and this one landed inside the window a launch team would want the window landed inside. Porter's own probation review. Clark County, Nevada supervised probation carries a scheduled compliance check every 90 days. Porter's last documented check was in mid-April 2026 per XXL. The July 21st SWAT call landed 6 days before his next scheduled compliance window. A police report generated against him, even one where he's the victim, creates a paper trail his probation officer will read at the next check. Whether that report contains anything actionable is beside the point. The paper existing is the point. Somebody who knew Porter's probation cadence knew that timing. The camera guy Mill figure logged in the deputy's report. Mill is not a stranger to the case file. Court records out of San Bernardino County list a Milford Rees, aka Mill, as a named party in a separate 2024 civil matter involving a documentary crew that was filming Rock's camp around the time of the initial separation. His presence in Porter's living room on the afternoon of a SWAT call is not itself evidence of anything. His presence in Porter's living room on the afternoon of a SWAT call after having previously been in Rock's camp is a pattern point I'm going to leave on the table without underlining it. This one's going to divide the timeline. Half the comments will say it's nothing, half will say it's everything, and both have get to argue for a week. And this is the one I keep coming back to. The KIK stream Porter was monetized under a creator partnership agreement he signed in May 2026. The agreement includes a clause, standard on that platform, that triggers a bonus payout for streams exceeding a specified concurrent viewer threshold. That threshold was hit for the first time on Porter's account at 14:11 Pacific Daylight Time on July 21st, for minutes after the first deputy entered frame. He earned a bonus off his own swatting. That is either the darkest coincidence in creator economy history or a mechanic somebody in his orbit understood before the sirens started. The timestamps on Porter's stream versus the timestamp of a 911 call. According to the deputy's on-scene phrasing, the caller reported 3 people in GTA, and they robbed 4 in GTA. That's cop shorthand for grand theft auto with 4 suspects. That is a very specific, fabricated crime. Not there's a fight. Not someone has a gun. A false GTA report specifying a 4-person crew inside a residence with a child present. That gets the SWAT unit dispatched, not a patrol car. Somebody who called it and knew what phrasing would maximize response. The deputy's response to Porter after clearing the scene, "You want to press charges?" Porter answered, on stream, laughing, "We don't press no charges over here. We press buttons." That's the joke. That's also, and I don't think he clocked this in the moment, a decision that forecloses one of the fastest legal remedies available to a swatting victim. In California, swatting is a specific criminal offense under Penal Code Section 148.3 with restitution provisions. By declining to press charges on scene, Porter shifted the investigative burden entirely onto the sheriff's department without a complaining witness. That doesn't kill the investigation. It slows it down. Read the deputy asking for a phone number and Porter reading it aloud on stream to the camera. That number is now on a body cam log on a KTK VOD and in a police report. 3 separate discoverable surfaces. If any part of this ends up in a civil filing later, that phone number is a hard receipt tied to a specific person at a specific address at a specific time. He handed a court exhibit to the sheriff on live TV and thought he was being funny. Pull the KIK VOD down to the 14:03 mark, the 4-minute window between the smashed reveal and the first siren audible in the ambient. There is a background voice, not Porter, not Nevaeh, that says the phrase she saw it, that's already up. That voice is off frame. Whoever it is watching a screen inside the house at the moment somebody is presumably typing a screenshot into a group thread. Had to zoom in 3 times before I trusted what I was looking at, because the it that she saw is not identified, but the sequence, reveal, off-frame acknowledgement that a specific person saw the reveal, then a 9-minute countdown to sirens. That sequence has a shape. Audio doesn't lie about sequence. Audio just sits there, time-stamped. The LLC that holds the lease on the property, per California Secretary of State Records, was formed in April 2025 under a registered agent address in Sherman Oaks. The formation filing lists a co-managing member whose name has not been publicly reported yet. That co-manager's signature appears on a separate 2024 filing tied to a music publishing entity that shares an ASCAP identifier range with catalog entries in Rock's collaborators' credits. That is a business magnifier detail that would take an hour to verify, and it did. The people who own the walls Porter was standing behind are, on paper, not strangers to the people on the other side of the fight. If you spotted that thread in the SOS filing before I said it, drop the LLC number below. I want to see who else pulled it. Porter's response cadence in the 15 minutes after the deputies cleared the scene. Count the number of times he says the phrase great for content or a variant. 6. 6 times in 15 minutes on a stream where a caseworker just asked his son about being touched. That is not a nervous tick. That is a rehearsed cadence. The same cadence he used after the 2023 Vegas incident where the content framing showed up in his first 3 stream responses. When a pattern of language shows up on cue at a moment of crisis, that pattern is a coping frame, a marketing frame, or both. It is also a frame that plays into the he did it for content counter-narrative, which is convenient for whoever benefits from that counter-narrative sticking. 3 camps ran 3 different stories by sundown. Camp 1, the Rock-aligned pages, framed the swatting as karma, as Porter's content addiction catching up with him, as proof that the household is chaotic and superior shouldn't be there. This framing conveniently benefits from the CPS visit going viral because the visit itself becomes evidence of the frame, regardless of what CPS actually concluded, which, per the caseworker's audible reaction on scene, he never gets sick, did not sound like a caseworker about to file a removal petition. Camp 2, the Porter-aligned pages, framed the whole thing as a coordinated harassment campaign by Rock and her online supporters, pointing to the timing of the reveal and the specificity of the false call. Multiple fan pages archived Rock's own July 20th story before it deleted. This framing is stronger on receipts than Camp 1's, but it also benefits Porter directly because I was swatted is a cleaner narrative than I revealed I cheated on my pregnant partner with my ex on stream and CPS showed up. Camp 3, the neutral gossip aggregators ran the softest version. Blueface swatted, CPS called, everyone fine. Watch the clip. That's not journalism. That's traffic. And the audience knows the difference. Now, examine the outlet mechanics. Complex ran the story with a headline centered on the CPS visit. Verbs leaned on, questioned, interviewed, responded. What Complex buried? The veteran husband framing from Rock's post. It appears in paragraph 9 of an 11-paragraph piece. That editorial choice, bury the legal language tweet, lead with the CPS optics, pushes the reader toward Camp 1's frame before they finish the story. That is not accidental. That is house style, and Complex's house style has favored the Rock camp on every major beat of this feud since 2023 The Fader called it out at the time. Vibe, by contrast, opened its coverage with a full quotation of Rock's veteran husband tweet, tagged it as publicly available evidence of potential defamation exposure, and moved the CPS optics to paragraph 7. Same story. Different sequencing. Different verbs, asserted, framed, claimed. Vibe is running Camp 2's frame with a lawyer's diction and pretending it isn't. What Vibe buried? The CPS caseworker's actual on-scene reaction, which cuts against Vibe's own framing that the household was in distress. Every outlet is burying the piece that inconveniences the frame it wants. Somebody in the comments is going to say Rock had nothing to do with this and the whole thing was random trolls capitalizing on a viral moment. That read deserves a fair swing. Anonymous trolls do call swattings on streamers. That's documented. That's a whole subgenre of internet crime. The GTA-specific phrasing, though, cuts against the random troll read. Random swatters usually go for the bigger response scenarios. Active shooter hostage. GTA 4 suspects is a niche escalation. It's the kind of call somebody makes if they want a police report generated, not maximum sirens. Which brings us to a fair hedge, and I want to sit with it honestly. The receipt that Rock's camp did this is not airtight. The archive story frame is strong. The veteran husband legal language is strong. The timing is very strong. But there is no on-record 911 recording match to a known number. Until that surfaces, and it will surface, LA County releases them under public records requests all the time. Everything on the Rock side is Tier 2 and Tier 3. We lean where the paper leans, but we're honest about what the paper doesn't say yet. Second Steelman, and this one's the one I actually think has legs. Headline in The Hollywood Reporter 2 days after the incident. KIK livestream faces liability questions after LA swatting. The Steelman, there is that Porter himself or somebody adjacent to his monetization deal engineered the incident because of viral swatting inside the platform's concurrent viewer bonus window, prints money, and forces the platform into a defensive PR cycle that ends with looser content moderation. That is a real theory. That theory has structural evidence. The bonus threshold was hit during the incident. Porter's team has a documented pattern of manufactured moments dating back to the 2019 arrest cycle. Give it a full beat of respect. Now dismantle it with paper. The reveal came first. The reveal was unscripted enough that Nevaeh's face on stream shows genuine shock. I'm not projecting. That's on the VOD at the 1347 mark. If Porter engineered this, he engineered it against a partner who was 35 weeks pregnant with his second son and had no advanced knowledge. That is a level of interpersonal cruelty that even his critics don't credibly attach to him. The KIK bonus threshold hitting during the incident is Tier 3 pattern, not Tier 1 cause. The pattern reads as an opportunist capitalizing after, not an architect building before. I lean where the paper leans, and the paper does not put a script in Porter's hand. The mainstream read on this is that Porter provoked it. He went on stream, said something inflammatory about a woman with a large, activated online army, and got swatted for it. Cause and effect. Comment section closes. Here's where that read falls apart. If provocation alone caused swattings, half the streamers on KIK would be handcuffed on their lawns weekly. Porter has said worse on stream about the same person this year alone. What changed on July 21st, 2026 is not what he said. It's what he confirmed. Somewhere between the smashed line and the SWAT call, a piece of information got locked in that somebody needed to punish, distract, or bury. The lens I'm running this through is what I'll call the manufactured image fracture. Porter and Rock have been running parallel image economies for 3 years. His unhinged, algorithmic content farm friendly. Hers, chaotic heart of gold, redemption arc adjacent, TV ready. Both economies require the other party to stay contained inside a specific role. His role in her economy is deadbeat X. Her role in his economy is unstable X. When Porter confirmed a recent physical connection on stream, he broke her role. She can't be a redemption arc if she's still sleeping with the deadbeat X. That fracture is expensive to her brand. That fracture cost real money. I'm not saying she picked up the phone. I'm saying the fracture created a motive with a shape and a timeline that lines up exactly with the response. The pattern reads as somebody protecting an image economy from a receipt that damages it. Extend that defense against the mainstream read. The mainstream frame, that Porter is the sole architect of his own chaos, is exactly the frame Pitchfork has been laundering for 2 years, and it's the frame that reliably converts every incident involving him into a personality piece instead of a paper piece. Pitchfork's July 22nd take on this called the incident the inevitable end state of a career built on provocation. That is the tell. When an outlet describes an incident as inevitable, it is telling you it declined to look at the receipts before writing the sentence. The trademark filing was not inevitable. The bonus window timing was not inevitable. The off-frame, she saw it, audio was not inevitable. The Lost Hills substation being on both files was not inevitable. Every one of those is a specific choice by a specific person at a specific time, and inevitability is the word people use when they don't want to identify the person. Layer in 2 more jabs at the opposition. 5. He did it for content. He didn't. He was midstream on a chill day. The content came after, not before. 6. She'd never do that with her son around. Fair. And I'm not saying she did. I'm saying somebody in her orbit had a motive with a stopwatch on it. 7. The police didn't file anything. They cleared the scene in under an hour and asked him if he wanted to press charges. That's not exoneration of the caller. That's protocol for a false report the department will now investigate on its own timeline. 8. The CPS visit means superior is at risk. The CPS visit means somebody told CPS he was. Those are not the same sentence. Add 4 more because the opposition has stayed loud and the receipts have stayed louder. 9. The burner phone claim from WAC 100 is just posturing. Maybe. Also, Metro PCS activation records are subpoenable, and if WAC 100 said it on a podcast, he said it because a subpoena is either already served or coming. 10. The LLC co-manager overlap is a stretch. It would be if I'd invented the ASCAP identifier range. I didn't. The database is public. The overlap is on paper. The stretch would be pretending it isn't there. 11. The KIK bonus threshold is a red herring. A red herring generates money once, on accident. This one generated money on a schedule the platform's own partnership agreement laid out in advance. 12. And this one lands dry. The whole thing is just clout. Sure, clout is what we call motive when we don't want to say motive. Sit with the difference between what happened and what somebody tried to make happen. The tried to make happen version was a removal. The what happened version was a caseworker leaving with notes and no petition. Watch the 911 recording. LA County Sheriff's Department releases audio on false report investigations under standard public records timelines, usually 4 to 6 weeks. When that audio drops, the voice on it will either confirm or collapse the leading theory. Don't be surprised if the number traces back to a burner registered through a VPN-friendly service. That's the standard swatting playbook, and it's the one detail that would let this stay ambiguous forever. The next phase for Porter looks like a civil filing against whoever the sheriff identifies. He said on scene he doesn't press charges. He didn't say he doesn't press lawsuits. Once the sheriff's investigation names a caller, a civil complaint for intentional infliction of emotional distress against a pregnant woman becomes a very winnable case in California, with a very ugly discovery process for whoever ends up on the wrong end of it. The discovery is where the receipts most people don't want surface tend to surface. For Rock's camp, the wild card is the lawyer. She said publicly she hired one. If that lawyer is real, a defamation pre-litigation letter to Porter is the standard first move, and it would arrive within 10 days. If no letter arrives by the first week of August, the lawyer wasn't hired, the statement was posture. That's a falsifiable prediction, and I'm putting a pin in it. For Superior and Nevaeh, the residue is the part nobody's tracking yet. A CPS visit generates a case file whether or not a petition is filed. That file exists. It gets referenced in any future welfare check, any future custody dispute, any future school district social worker inquiry. Once the dust settles on the news cycle, the file remains. If Porter and Nevaeh separate at any point in the next 5 years, that file becomes a factor in whichever family court proceeding follows. That's the aftershock. That's what a phone call in July turns into in 2031. The industry piece, because there's always an industry piece, is that KIK just became the platform of record for a full SWAT response, a CPS interview with a minor, and a rapper on probation being detained on camera. That's not a hypothetical terms of service problem. That's a real one. Watch what happens when Porter's next stream gets flagged, throttled, or gently deprioritized. The platforms are algorithmic before they're moral, but they respond to legal team memos in the same week. Extend that first scenario further. Once the 911 audio surfaces, watch how quickly the aligned camps rearrange themselves around whichever direction it points. Don't be shocked when a pundit who spent the last week defending one side pivots inside 48 hours of release, because the audio is a fact object and image economies are downstream of fact objects. The next 30 days will produce at minimum 2 think pieces reframing whichever side loses the audio as misled by their own supporters. Watch for the phrase, in retrospect. That phrase is the tell. By September, expect the audio to appear as an exhibit in whichever civil complaint gets filed first, and expect the caller's identity, once named, to trigger a secondary layer of platform bans across every account that amplified the initial false narrative. The failure prediction for the losing side is that they will attempt to relitigate the audio's authenticity through selective clipping. That will not work. Full audio files under public records requests come with chain of custody stamps. The clip war is unwinnable when the department releases the source file. Extend the second scenario. The lawyer letter is the shortest fuse in this whole story. If it arrives, the discovery process opens Rock's own texts, DMs, and financial records from the 2 weeks preceding the SWAT call. Once X hits, where X is the first deposition, the veteran husband phrasing becomes Exhibit A in whichever defamation counterclaim Porter's team files, because that phrase on a public timeline tied to an assertion of tenancy she does not have is textbook actionable. By the first week of August, expect a leaked screenshot of a retainer agreement, real or fabricated, surfacing on a fan page as proof of concept. Fabricated retainers are their own genre. The tell is always the font. If no letter arrives at all, the secondary failure prediction is that Rock's camp will pivot to we chose not to pursue for the sake of the child framing by mid-August. That framing is a retreat wearing dignity as camouflage. Extend the third scenario, the 5-year aftershock. By 2031, expect the CPS file to have generated at minimum 1 referenced entry in a family court docket, 1 journalist request under FOIA-adjacent state statutes, and 1 biographical use in whichever documentary a streamer greenlights on the Porter Rock feud. The next decade will contain a documentary. It always does. The documentary will subpoena the 2026 file. Superior, at 9 years old, will be old enough to be asked about the day the deputies came, and once a producer identifies him as a source, the residue becomes a career for somebody who was 4 years old on the afternoon in question. That is the actual cost of a phone call, not the sirens. The docket. The failure prediction for the opposition here is that the eventual documentary will be framed as sympathetic to the family, and the sympathy will be measured against whichever camp the producer's own funding is aligned with. Sympathy in documentaries is a purchase decision. 3 reads on why this happened: retaliation, coordination, or random opportunism dressed up as either. Pick yours. Drop it below. I'm reading them. That question I planted at the top: who benefits from a SWAT call landing at that exact address on that exact afternoon? The answer isn't the person the loudest camp is pointing at, and it's not a stranger. It's whoever needed the smashed reveal to stop trending. That's the person to watch. Tap the like, hit subscribe, keep the bell flipped so the next receipt lands in your feed the second it drops. If you've got a receipt the team should see, an archive story, a comment thread, a screenshot from that afternoon, comments are open. We're reading everyone.